Georgia's the epicenter this year of so much, right? Are you worried about the fact that your state is the place that Donald Trump continues to be so fixated on that that's going to impact the ability of people to vote in Georgia this November?
Absolutely, I'm worried about it. I think everybody should be worried about it. Even Republicans that are going to vote for other Republicans should worry about it. And if we lose that sanctity of our elections or that confidence, then what, right? What do we have? We look like so many of the other countries that we complain about around the world. I do think this is going to continue to be the political center of the universe. This seems to be Donald Trump's playground. There's three-ring circus that he wants to pitch. And my hope is that enough Georgians step up and do the right thing, regardless of what their political positions are. And I'm seeing that play out.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Mayday Podcast. You are watching the Mayday Network. I'm Michelle Kinney. I'm here with my co-host, Julie Roginsky, and we are joined today by the former Republican Lieutenant Governor, Geoff Duncan, who is running as a Democrat to be the next governor of the state of Georgia. So without further ado, let's get started.
Hey, I'm Julie Roginsky here with Michelle Kinney, and today we're so happy to be joined by Geoff Duncan, the former Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, who's now running for governor in Georgia. Great to see you here, Geoff.
Great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Sure. Let's start with the news of the week. Your state has now become has continued to be, I guess, the center point of Trump's obsession with the 2020 election, so much so that they are raiding old ballots in Fulton County, Georgia, to check for what's going on down there.
Well, I think there's actually two things going on, but none of it has to do with the 2020 election and validating that election, right? It has nothing to do with it. We've done that so many times, counted, recounted, audited, hand counted, the whole 9 yards. We've had almost coming up on 6 years of time to prove anything, and we know that's not really a thing. This is about two things. One, it's about Donald Trump's ego and his vanity. He continues to be proven wrong and embarrassed, and he's trying to double down and triple down. But more impactful for the country is this is about sowing seeds of doubt. Right. This is about sowing seeds of doubt so that they can go back to that and lean into it when they are getting beat or the polls aren't reflecting what they think they should be, or the election outcomes aren't going to be what they want them to be in 2026 in the midterms. That's what this is all about. And there's things that they can do from there. Right. I'm feeling like there's moves to maybe try to get some of the state election board here in Georgia to take over Fulton County's election process, which is a disaster times 10. We've already seen all of the horrific ideas and the court overturns that they've had to put on that election committee. And Gabby Tulser, what was she doing? Right? Come on. She didn't even know what she was doing, most likely. She just got sent down just to stir the pot and to create internet rumors.
So what do you think you're going to do with these ballots? Do you think they're going to tamper with them to show there were some improprieties, or do you think they're going to go that far, or just leave it at that?
I hope not. I hope not, for a multitude of reasons. For the safety and security of our democracy is paramount reasons. I hope there's enough sanity inside the FBI and there's enough good people. But look at some of the processes that led up to this. There was a St. Louis judge is the one who signed this search warrant, which I don't know what that means, but lawyer buddies of mine said that's very odd. Somebody outside the region. But secondly, I think there's been some very serious, information to arrive that the FBI was reorganized in the Atlanta office and the Atlanta field office right before the raids, which told me that, like we've seen play out in other government agencies before, if you don't do what Donald Trump wants, you're gone, and they'll bring somebody in that wants to smile as a sock puppet.
What do you think ultimately is the impact on your election? Georgia's the epicenter this year of so much, right? Georgia is not, you don't just have a massive governor's race happening where you hope to be the Democratic nominee. We'll get to that in a moment. But you've also got a very competitive Senate race that could potentially result in control of the Senate. Do you see that the federal government is going to try to make Georgia an example this year? Are you worried about the fact that your state is really the place that Donald Trump continues to be so fixated on that that's going to impact the ability of people to vote in Georgia this November?
Absolutely, I'm worried about it. I think everybody should be worried about it. Even Republicans that are going to vote for other Republicans should worry about it. The sanctity of our elections is exactly that. And if we lose that sanctity of our elections or that confidence, then what? Right? What do we have? We look like so many of the other countries that we complain about around the world. And so, yes, I do think this is going to continue to be the political center of the universe. This seems to be Donald Trump's playground. There's three-ring circus that he wants to pitch. And my hope is that enough Georgians step up and do the right thing, regardless of what their political positions are. And I'm seeing that play out. right? I'm seeing as the Democratic candidate for governor, as a former Republican, early headwinds of like, is this real? Now we're watching these crowds grow. We're watching disgusted Republicans show up. We're watching moderates show up and independents, and we're watching Democrats show up. The crowds are getting bigger. I think an interesting telltale sign, and I'm sure John Ossoff is probably getting the same thing. I've got over 11,000 contributions online from all 50 states. Right? These are $1, $5, $10, kind of at the most, because folks around the country are watching what we're talking about here, the political center of the universe, and realizing if we don't get it right in Georgia, nobody's going to be able to have the chance to get it right.
Well, that's why I wanted to ask you about switching parties. I can only imagine how difficult that must have been. I mean, there are so many Republicans, some of which I used to work for, left the party, decided to do the right thing, stand up to Donald Trump. I'm wondering what the reaction has been from Democrats in Georgia. Has anyone said, how are we supposed to trust you, having been on the other side of the aisle? How do you align with our party's values? Like, what has that been like for you in your state running?
Yeah, it's been a free-flowing conversation every day, all day. Breakfasts, lunches, dinners, speeches, you name it. And, quite honestly, this is a relief. This wasn't hard. This was allowing me to sink my soul with better ideas, not have to make excuses around trying to demonize folks in poverty or try to rail against expanding Medicaid or not passing common sense gun legislation because 90% of Georgians want to do that. These are the things that I felt in my heart I wanted to do. And this is so much more than just Donald pushing back against Donald Trump. This is about actually aligning with the majority of Georgians and doing the right thing. And certainly there's skeptics out there, but I tell them, like, look, I haven't lost my mind. I found my heart. I reach into this toolkit of better ideas, and they're not perfect ideas. And I don't think anybody walks into these conversations with perfect ideas. The one leap of faith I took when I ran as a Democrat for governor was that Georgia's Democrats and independents were more moderate than the national Democratic platform. That was the only leap of faith I took. And that's certainly what we're seeing play out. I think, one, folks are gravitating towards more moderate tone and tenor. I like to create conversations instead of stir up chaos. That's just kind of my resume. But I think also it's important, Democrats are ready to win. It's been nearly 30 years in Georgia since the Democrats won the election, because you got to get more than the base to win. And I'm certainly the only one building that coalition of Democrats, independents, and this gift of disgusted Republicans that are going to show up and vote for us and John Ossoff and other Democrats up and down the ticket.
Just curious. I mean, knowing what you know now, and obviously you were a Republican for many years, do you think that your former party can be reformed, or do you think it's over?
No, it's over. That ship has sailed. It's what we're going to see play out in my best predictions is going to be a series of half-lives of Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump's going to figure out a way to exit the scene, come hell or high water it might take, but you're going to have a Vance or a Rubio or somebody else show up that's going to try to be as loud and proud as some of these things that Donald Trump is. That's what the Republican base expects to see. They want to see a cage match and a blood sport every day. And that's going to just take their policies and dump them straight in the trash can. I mean, there's no conservative policies over there anymore. Certainly no fiscal conservative policies. There's federal overreach in every phase of government. They're weaponizing every department of the federal government. There's no foreign policy that makes sense or matches what conservatives. That ship has sailed. This is the opportunity of a lifetime for Democrats, in my opinion, to open up the tent and grow as big as we possibly can, and not just win for an election cycle, right? That's going to feel good for a moment. But if we can actually get enough folks to come on board and get some policies and stay focused on the issues that meet most people where they're at, I think that's the opportunity of a lifetime, and we can win for an extended period of time. My campaign is focused on three, and I'm encouraging Democrats across the board, even if they're running against me, to focus on the same three things: the affordability crisis, the healthcare crisis, and the Donald Trump crisis. That's what most people wake up worried about, including Republicans.
Yeah, it's interesting because lately it's become apparent to me that this is kind of the affordability and accountability election, right? That you got to talk about affordability, but also you've got to be talking about accountability for everything that happened. You were at the forefront of that. I mean, you, when you were lieutenant governor, as I recall, because I remember the story, it was just crazy. You, Brian Kemp, Brad Raffensperger, I mean, there were a lot of Georgians who stood up and said, this is insane in 2020. You then ended up endorsing Kamala Harris and got kicked out of your party, which is just, I guess it makes sense, but it's interesting that they kind of decided, it was like a clique in high school. They decided you can't sit at the table.
Right.
I left before they kicked me out. So.
Oh, you did? All right, well.
They didn't know that, but I did.
Yeah. So the question, I guess, for me is, you're running against a bunch of Democrats, including, the former mayor, the mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms. And the argument that the people are going to be making against you is A, what took you so long? And B, while they were fighting in the trenches all these years, you were on the other side. So what's your answer to that? Because I assume that's the question that you're going to be asked over and over again on the trail.
Yeah, I certainly respect their hard work over the years. They put in a lot of time and a lot of effort. And I certainly understand their heartburn and angst that somebody relatively new to the party would come in. But I've lived out the most public transformation of over the last 5+ years. I've not only talked about Donald Trump being wrong and pushed back on the election and fought back against, special sessions and trying to usurp democracy. I've also taken very public opinions on guns and safe gun laws, immigration, and push back on the ICE raids. I've taken a stance against abortion and the heartbeat bill that's here. So this has been a very public-facing transformation. So it hasn't just been a political consultant got my ear, because I can assure you nobody's given me political advice to take this on. But look, I think the argument to be made is we got to win. Another second-place trophy for Democrats is disastrous, not just for us, but for the rest of the country. And I think it's hard to argue against the fact that I give us the best possible chance to beat what looks like going to be Burt Jones, who, for those who don't know Burt Jones, current lieutenant governor, but fake elector, was pardoned by Donald Trump, tried to take over our city of Atlanta airport, tried to do all kinds of nebulous things. I'm the best one to beat him, and I will beat him.
What does Brian Kemp said to you privately about all of this? Like, what are people who you served with in the Republican side who did not go crazy the way a lot of people did in 2020? What did they say to you about this?
Well, quite honestly, the way most Republican conversations goes, they put their arm around me and look both ways to make sure there's no TV cameras. And they're like, hey, we're really proud of you. Congrats on doing the right thing. I hope this thing comes back to normal pretty soon. That's the average Republican conversation. But when the lights turn on and the cameras turn on, they're laser focused on licking Trump's boots, because that's how you survive in that party. That's how you move up in that party. That's how you get an endorsement. But it's a disgusting process, and it is what it is. All right, I can either get instantly mad and scream and holler, or I can play the long game and just hope they watch him continue to train wreck the country and train wreck their party, and wake up one day and say, you know what? If the worst thing is somebody calls me as a Democrat, I'm gonna be just fine. I walk out of these Democratic meetings more recharged and more refreshed at the future of this country and the future of our state, because there's actual ideas being talked about. There's actually plans, like taking 10% of our state's $17 billion rainy day fund. Instead of just sitting on it, why don't we invest that back in folks in and around poverty? Figure out ways to lower childcare costs through the CAPS program. Figure out how to better fund the TANF program to help families in poverty with utility bills and transportation needs. I mean, there's things that we can do. We can improve public education. We can expand Medicaid. That's the kind of conversations I'm having in Democratic meetings. In Republican meetings, they're just worshiping Donald Trump.
Are you worried at all? Look, African-American women have traditionally been the backbone of the Democratic Party. In your state, I think even more so, because your state just happens to be, as I keep saying, the epicenter of all of this. Are you worried that if you become the nominee, there's a really dirty, tough primary election? We're seeing this take place in Texas, for instance, where they're just savaging each other, and it hasn't gotten to Georgia yet. Hopefully will not to that extent. But are you worried that you're going to, as a white man, somehow make Black women who typically come out feel like their chance again at the brass ring was denied? I mean, I think that's an answer you probably would have to give.
My job every day is to go out and share my vision for Georgia and to earn the respect of every person that's out there. Even if they're not going to vote for me, I want to earn their respect. I want them to hear my plan. I want to make the Democratic Party better and the platform better. I want to have articulate ways to show up day one on the job and really speak with fluency what improving quality public education looks like, how we can update our funding formula, which is 40 years old, how we can improve public safety, how we can create economic opportunity through all 159 counties. That's what I'm consumed with. I think when folks hear that, and I know this is the case, when I walk into communities, whether they be urban or rural, Black, white, Asian, business-minded, you name it, when they hear the vision and the plan, what day one looks like, they warm up. And when they realize that there's a winnability argument and that I'm going to go do the right thing and stand up to Donald Trump and figure out ways to make their life more affordable and not take it lying down, not giving them health care, I think folks come our way, including Black women and others constituencies.
I want to bring it back just for a second. What you were talking about, the Republicans who put their arm around you and say, we're proud of you. We don't have the courage to do it ourselves. Why do you think
they don't quite say that part, but they get close to it,
right? Or imply it, right? Or it's received that way. Why do you think that is? Because it's not just a Georgia thing, obviously, right? This is a nationwide epidemic of spineless Republicans who seem to despise Donald Trump, but certainly don't have the courage to stand up to him. Like, why do you think that is? Are they just afraid of losing their seat, their lot in life? Like, what is this? What is that about?
I think it's human nature. Nobody likes to be wrong, right? And so
Yeah.
they're willing to double down and triple down. And so there's a bunch of excuses along the way. I don't like Donald Trump as a person, but he makes really good business decisions. Or, this America First thing's sloppy, but it's going to be effective. Whatever the excuse structure is, but folks are running out of excuses. But the human nature to it is it's across all platforms in political parties. I say this about in Democratic circles all the time. Democrats should have been much quicker to tell Joe Biden it was a mistake to leave an open and unsecure border. They should have. Right? It makes all the sense in the world to have an open or have a secure and orderly border process. Now, what doesn't make sense is these inhumane, un-American ICE raids that are literally killing people. But we should have said as Democrats, hey, you need to tighten this up. Or we should have been quicker to say, hey, don't dismiss this inflation thing that's happening. Let's really dig into it and meet working people where they're at. So nobody wants to be on the wrong side or have to say they're sorry. I think that's what makes my story unique. I got a couple things wrong. I was wrong to speak up early as a legislator and say the NRA had somebody's best interest. They don't. I was wrong to say that we shouldn't expand Medicaid because I've explored every healthcare platform possible, and the only way to fix it is through Medicaid expansion. And I was certainly wrong to think that a room full of legislators knew better than millions of women on the abortion issue. When the heartbeat bill passed and then Roe got overturned, it was abundantly obvious after hearing these horrific medical stories, these difficult personal situations, that we were wrong to pass that law. And so day one, I promised everybody I'll sign an executive order to clarify doctors can practice medicine without fear of prosecution, which is huge. That's one massive issue going on. And two, introduce legislation to repeal the 6-week ban. I think even Republicans know that's what they want to happen. And so I'll be the catalyst to make that happen.
You talked about people who, and Michelle pointed this out too, people who don't want to admit they're wrong and who privately are telling you that, you did the right thing, but we can't really do the same. I got to ask you, because she's in your state, what do you make of Marjorie Taylor Greene these days?
Oh my gosh.
Is she still relevant in your state? I'm not talking about nationally, but I mean, is she a relevant figure in Georgia still, having sort of had a bit of a come to Jesus, but not quite all the way? Like, what do you make of her?
Yeah, I certainly don't know what it's about. I've not talked to her. I'm as intrigued as everybody else is at kind of the rapid change. It is what it is. I do think she's speaking a lot of truth to power right now, as far as calling out Republicans and calling out Trump. I think there's a tailwind to be grabbed there with Democrats and independents. We do see her voice. I think it really feels as though it's more of a national voice than it is necessarily a statewide voice. That's just my personal feeling. But I think it speaks to the kind of the civil war that's going to happen, that's happening inside the Republican Party. I mean, there's factions that are like, hey, I'm here. Some folks are there because they're fiscally conservative, and they're like, that's not happening, right? Like we're spending money like we're printing it because we are. There's some folks that are, whatever their issue of the hour is, it's all falling apart. And I oftentimes compare Donald Trump and the MAGA to a Ponzi scheme, and it's literally unraveling in front of our eyes. It's a Ponzi scheme that's full of misinformation and disinformation and crazy ideas to make you forget about yesterday's crazy ideas. And it's falling apart. And, we'll see where it goes.
You at a point here where you're effectively making the case, it sounds to me like you're pretty much making the case that, yes, there are people here who might be more progressive than you are, who might have been in the party longer than you have, but nevertheless, you're the only one capable of actually bringing over disaffected Republicans, disaffected independents who might have voted for Trump last time, but now have really huge buyer's remorse. Do you have the sense that this is where the Democratic Party is right now? Because, I see this argument that took place and I'll give you an example from up north in New York, where Andrew Cuomo tried that argument and obviously failed spectacularly. Now we have a very, very progressive mayor in New York. On the other hand, down in Virginia and in New Jersey, you have moderate candidates who did make the argument that you made and were successful in terms of bringing more people in, making this a more open tent. I think it's pretty much anybody's guess as to who would win this race in November if they're the nominee, but it sounds to me like Democrats have got as good a shot as any. So what's the argument that you make to people who say, you know what, we need somebody who's been fighting the fight in the trenches for the last 20, 30, however many years, and we need somebody who's going to stand up for our progressive values and Are you that guy? I mean, can you make the argument that you've been fighting the good fight for the last X number of years in the trenches against all of this and everything that's been going on?
Well, I think the argument to be made is that every state has its own independent, kind of flavor
Right.
as far as their party goes. And the Democratic Party should be nimble enough. And I sense it is becoming more nimble, and losing is a function of that. I think watching Georgians kind of really gel together and say, you know what, we want a candidate that represents, their heat map represents a majority of Georgians. And this is that opportunity that they feel. And am I as progressive as folks in the party? Nope. There's folks to my left for sure. Are there people to my right that are going to vote for me? Absolutely. But I think I represent that heat map that gives us the best opportunity to sit up day one on the job as a Democratic governor and really move forward. I mean, day one looks like, introducing abortion, repealing the abortion ban, passing common sense gun legislation, expanding the Jumpstart Fund to poverty. I mean, improving public education with our budgeting. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. That's day one. If Democrats get a second place trophy in this election, I can assure you that's not going to be Burt Jones's to-do list day one.
Well, listen, Burt Jones sounds like the exact, it doesn't matter what else happens. I mean, he sounds like he's MAGA to the point of turning Georgia into a place that Brian Kemp never took it, right? I mean, to some extent, I guess Brian Kemp was successful because he never went crazy MAGA. And now you're talking about somebody who's so way to the right of him that it would be an unrecognizable state, even to the Republicans who voted for somebody like a Brian Kemp and voted for you in the past, right? You won a primary that nobody expected you to win the first time around when you ran for lieutenant governor. Yeah. So what are the lessons from that race that you can take into this? I mean, people underestimated you tremendously in that race, I think.
Yeah, I think it's just hard work. I mean, statewide races are like out-of-body experiences. It's nonstop. It's all day, every day. We'd all love to walk into auditoriums with 5,000 people in it and make one stump speech a day, but it really happens 5, 10, 15-person meetings at a time, all 25 miles apart. And it's granular fundraising. It's, endorsements. It's yard signs. It's shaking hands, taking pictures, social media. I mean, it's the whole 9 yards. And I really sense this momentum building for us because this more moderate tone and tenor, it's not, I don't have a history that shows I pick fights. I just like to show up and solve problems. And I think folks are realizing that, we have enough problems where we need problem solvers.
Just the last question, I'll let you go. What went wrong with Stacey Abrams last time? What didn't she do that you think you could do? And I don't mean that you should criticize her, but what went wrong in the last election that precluded somebody like her from winning?
I think she did a really good job of driving the base out, but I feel like the moderates in the middle, the independents in the middle, and certainly the Republicans kind of turned them on the Democratic platform. And I think some of that played out where it was a nationalized race. And so a lot of the issues that we were seeing play out on TV were national issues in the commercials, going back and forth, kind of bantering back and forth, instead of it just really being local issues, statewide issues. But those issues are pretty easy to define now. It's like I've said, I mean, this is affordability. Democrats and Republicans are going to be talking about affordability. Like, how can they drive down costs? Healthcare. Republicans, I don't know how they're going to talk about healthcare. If you don't have it, don't go to the doctor. Right? That's going to be their TV ad. In the Donald Trump crisis, if you give a Republican a 6-pack of beer in 2 hours, they can't explain to you tariffs. They can't explain to you Greenland or Venezuela or the ICE raids in Minneapolis and other places. I mean, they can't. So I do think this is the opportunity, but we got to be clear messaging, and we've got to be disciplined on our message.
Perfect. Michelle, anything else before we go?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, when is your primary? When does that take place?
May 19th. Polls close at 7 p.m. So we're already getting ready for that. And you can find out more at duncanforgeorgia.com.
Great.
Fantastic.
Perfect. Great. We'll put that as a Chiron underneath. Geoff, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Great to chat with you all.
You too. Good luck.
Thanks. Talk soon.
That was a great conversation, Michelle. Thank you to Lieutenant Governor Geoff Duncan for joining us here today. And we hope you continue to watch more of these podcasts. Like and subscribe to the Mayday Network on YouTube. We'll see you all soon.